With this, I would like to start introducing our first speaker for this session, Mr. Philippos Papageorgiou. Mr. Philippos is an aquaculture and seafood industry professional with over 25 years of experience in both the private and public sectors. He has managed numerous projects, the majority of which were conducted in collaboration with international organizations and bodies, including the European Commission, the European Parliament, the FAO, GFCM, the Federation of European Aquaculture Producers, the Spanish Aquaculture Observatory Foundation, as well as various international organizations. He has also served as a technical consultant to the Saudi Aquaculture Society and the Aquaculture Department of the Ministry of Environment, Water and Aquaculture from 2016 to 2019. Since August 2019, he has been serving as a director of aquaculture for the National Fisheries Development Program in Saudi Arabia. He holds a bachelor degree in marine biology, master's in aquaculture and fisheries from the University of Wales, and the MBA in general management and marketing from the University of Leicester. With this brief introduction, I invite Mr. Philippos to deliver his presentation on the role of aquaculture in Saudi Arabia's blue economy. Mr. Philippos, now the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the invitation, and good morning to everyone. Can you confirm that you see my screen and you hear my voice?
Yes, we can see your screen.
Excellent.
We cannot see your presentation.
All right. I have the first page shared. It's not sharing?
No.
Okay, because it says that I'm screen sharing.
Yeah, so we're seeing your data explorer.
All right.
But not the PowerPoint.
Okay, let me do that again.
Share your desktop, please. Not a specific application.
You see it now?
Yeah, it's fine now.
Oh, we have it.
Okay, thank you. Good. So I'm going to start about what we mean by blue economy, because there are many versions of definitions of blue economy, and in a nutshell, it's economic activities that relate to the oceans, to the seas, and in a way that they practice these activities in a sustainable manner, in an environmentally sustainable manner. And then we move, what is aquaculture? Because I saw from the panel that not everyone is used to this practice, so let's have a brief introduction. It's a controlled process of cultivating aquatic organisms mainly for human consumption, and it's literally practiced everywhere, from the polar regions to the temperate waters to close to the desert, as we do it here. It happens. It's done already. Whether we're talking about extensive aquaculture with mussels or with species that require less input of feed or no input of feed, and they rely on the natural environment, to more intensive methods in cages in the sea or in land-based facilities, whether these are recirculated aquaculture or open flow systems. When you talk about aquaculture, it's not just the farm that we usually have in mind, where we grow the fish. It's also the hatchery, where we have the broodstock, and we have the new generation, the PLs for shrimp, or the fry for the fish. And then we go upstream to the processing of the seafood product that is being produced. And also we need feed mills. So feed mills are also a big part of the aquaculture industry, how we produce specialized feeds for the animals that we grow. But why aquaculture? And the answer is very simple, because the world needs more food. Soon we're going to be almost 9 billion people, COVID allowing, but I think we're moving to that number fast. And we're running out of resources. The planet's resources are under pressure, whether we're talking about fresh water, whether we're talking about climate change, and the loss of biodiversity. So we need to be very careful on how we produce food for all these people. From 1961 to 2016, we saw a tremendous increase in seafood consumption per capita for a number of reasons. But if we continue on that path, and we don't expect fisheries to supply, capture fisheries to supply any more than they have been doing so, the trend is to reduce that supply, then we expect that we're going to have a demand gap between 70 to 130 million metric tons of seafood. So the only way to do it is to have environmentally sustainable ways of producing food. And aquaculture is the most resource efficient food production method known up to now. In the lower part of this graph, we see the FCR, the food conversion ratio for seafood, for fish and shrimp, which is in most cases 2. So it's for every kilo you give, every kilo of food you give to the animals that you farm, you get you get 1.1 to 1.9 kilos, which is really the most sustainable way of producing food. Fish has the highest protein retention rate. It's among the highest energy retention, the lowest feed conversion ratio, and again, the best ratio between edible meat and kilos of feed fed compared to the other farmed animals. It is the less impactful, it is the most environmentally sustainable method in terms of carbon dioxide emissions, nitrogen, phosphorus, and so on. And we need to keep that in mind. There was a recent, well, fairly recent report by the World Fish Center and International and Conservation International, and they confirmed that products originating from aquaculture do contribute less per unit weight to global emissions of nitrogen and phosphorus than pork and beef. And fish convert a high percentage of the food to consumable protein. All in all, it's a very ecological, efficient, environmentally friendly, when practiced properly, method of producing food. Here is another graph. Again, the Global Aquaculture Alliance has made some research in terms of carbon footprint. It's really very low, the carbon footprint of fish produced. The interesting part is in water consumption, and we see here the 1,400 liters used for fish. This is an open flow system. When we farm fish in the sea, we don't use fresh water. When we farm sea inland and it's not an open flow system, any dry system, that number drops down to 10% of that. So again, it's the least impactful way of producing high quality protein. It is a net protein producer. There's been a lot of debate over the years that we use fish meal and fish oil from capture fisheries, and we give that to the fish. Net in net, it's a positive feed producer. We're going to talk about feed later down this presentation, because this is a very interesting topic in terms of sustainability, and there are very good alternatives. We don't tend to focus on the FCR, on the food conversion ratio anymore, but on the fish in, fish out. How much fish you've used, how many kilos of fish you used in the feed to produce fish as part of the aquaculture process. And that ratio is definitely below 1. We have good advocates like Jean-Michel Cousteau suggesting that there's no industry that deserves more attention than that sustainable aquaculture if we want to feed the world. And aquaculture has been the fastest growing food producing sector. We've got a growth rate of 5% for shrimp. Tilapia has been growing rapidly over the years, between 5 to 10%, and salmon continues to grow still between 5 to 7%. Around 5-6 years ago, we started producing, aquaculture started producing, supplying more than 50% of the food that is required for human consumption. We estimate that within the next 3 years, 4 years, that share is going to go close to 60%. Overall, aquaculture produces 114.5 million tons of food at a value of $263 billion, and it provides livelihood and income to almost 40 million people. But why aquaculture in Saudi Arabia? And the reason is that we're having a growing population. We estimate to be around 40 million people living in the country in 2030. There has been an increase in annual protein consumption over the last 30 years, a tremendous increase in annual protein consumption. But we also start to see an increasing awareness on health concerns, but mainly by the younger generation, and the need to change dietary habits. A couple of years ago, there was this survey, and they found that Saudis, they do suffer from a number of diseases, nutrition-related diseases like obesity, diabetes, high blood pressure, and so on. So there is a big need to change, to improve dietary habits for health reasons. And that was an article in Arab News last week. It said that obesity is costing Saudi Arabia almost $20 billion US dollars per year. So there is a huge cost, a huge social and medical social security cost that we need to take into account. So changing dietary habit is a priority. We do know, everyone knows, that there are health benefits associated with eating seafood. Doctors usually say that we need to eat seafood, consume seafood at least 2 times per week for a number of reasons, for eyesight, memory, maintaining cardiovascular health, and so on. So it is important. Everyone tends to know that these days. Most of the seafood is expected to come from aquaculture. But let's see what is the status of the seafood market here in Saudi Arabia. In 2019, with a population around 34 million people, that was the last survey we did, we estimated that the volume of the seafood market here in Saudi Arabia was 310,000 metric tons. 65 was coming from aquaculture, around 65 was coming from capture fisheries. A big part was coming from imports. We import a lot of seafood. One would say that domestic production is about 42%, but in reality, domestic supply is less than 30% because we do export a big part of the production from aquaculture. And that drops. The annual per capita seafood consumption is at around 9 kg per year. This is very low. 70% is imported. Just 8% of what we consume comes from local aquaculture. So we need to change dietary habits because of the reasons we explained earlier: the obesity, cardiovascular diseases. Saudis do not enjoy life as much as they could, as much as they should. So we need to start changing these habits. Seafood, as it is, it's appreciated and consumed by few Saudis, hence the 9 kg per annum. That they know how to select it, they know how to buy and cook it. These people are usually around the coastal areas where seafood has been traditionally supplied at larger volumes. But it's also, this 9 kg is attributed to a large number of expats, mainly from Southeast Asia and Africa. So the 9 kg really is skewed because Saudis, we estimate they consume around 5 kg. So we need to change these dietary habits and adopt a more healthy lifestyle. Especially with 2030 coming, with 40 people estimated to be living in this country, we need to change this pattern. So seafood consumption is one of our goals. We want more seafood consumption. We want to move from the 9 kg that we have, which is less than the global average, to try and reach over close to 20 kg, which is the global average. But we need to improve dietary habits for health reasons. We need to reduce social and medical security costs with increased seafood consumption. But mostly we need to have more local seafood consumption, locally produced, because that will provide jobs, it will provide income, it will reduce dependence on imports. And we all witnessed the problems of food security during the pandemic. And it's a way of supporting the local seafood industry. We increase productivity and increase competitiveness if we have local seafood consumption. And this is our goal. We estimate that the total seafood market in 2030 is going to be around 780,000 metric tons. With the efforts that we are doing to increase consumption, we estimate that we will have an average per capita consumption of around 19 kilos. And there is room for growth in aquaculture to produce about 500,000 tons. We might not do it. There have been some delays mainly due to the pandemic, but this is the capacity that we assume we can produce in the country. And of course, a big part of that is going to be exported in the regional markets. Achieving almost 30% of supply to the local market, to the local consumers from aquaculture is definitely an attainable goal. Providing almost 6 kilos of food from local aquaculture sources, it's definitely a target that we can attain. But where do we stand now? Let's have a deep dive in the industry. Where we stand now, there's been a lot of investment, significant infrastructure investment and know-how in shrimp farming. We have one of the biggest shrimp farms globally, south of Jeddah in Alif. We also have developing infrastructure for marine cage aquaculture, mainly in, exclusively in the Red Sea coast. We produce the Asian sea bass and a number of other species. Again, we're using the latest technology available. We have cameras on top of the cages and within the cages, so we monitor the behavior of the fish, how much feed is being used, feed is not wasted around the environment. So there is technology available that we are using. On land facilities, we have very, very strict biosecurity measures and biosecurity control measures. We have the latest technology from drum filters to UV and to ozone methods of cleaning the water, to disinfecting the water, to make sure that the environment and the broodstock and the larvae in the land facilities are free of any pathogens, and they're free of any pathogens when they go out in the wild. Quality control is very high, not during the process of farming, but also during the process of packaging and processing. So we abide to the highest food hygiene standards. What is interesting to see is that we have a strongly developing segment of freshwater aquaculture. It's mainly producing tilapia. We have a number of farms that are producing tilapia, initially in open flow system, but they start combining this with agriculture because the water coming from the fish farm is fertilized, so it's better for the agricultural farms. But there's also been development in aquaponics, and these pictures are here in Saudi Arabia. So with the same resource, with fresh water, we have one business unit, we can produce fish, but we also can produce vegetables, and we can use the same water to irrigate palm trees. We have a very strong developing RAS segment over the past 2 years. Recirculated aquaculture systems are appearing all over the kingdom, mainly producing tilapia for local consumers, and this is very, very encouraging because it's very good use of the local water. We have complementary industries. We have feed mills. We have a number of feed mills that they produce very high quality feed for the farms in the region. And as I said, we mainly produce shrimp and a number of fish species. These species have been introduced for farming. They've been established, but our effort is to move into local species. And this is something that I'm going to talk about later on. we increased production from 2015 to 2018 almost by 200%, reached almost 75,000 tons from almost a dozen of companies. The biggest one is Naqua, producing shrimp. Over the years, shrimp production has been reduced because of some management measures to be more biosecure, and they have a more proactive approach. We've seen a huge increase, a significant increase in freshwater, and also an increase in marine water aquaculture, marine water fish aquaculture. A lot of these products are being exported, mainly shrimp, all over the world. This is because of the high quality and the certified quality of our products. We have what we say 3 process and product quality drivers. One is the biosecurity program. We have a really very strong biosecurity program that we do check on a monthly basis over 2,000 animals. I'm going to talk about that. Where is it? Here. Yeah, we have a team of experts. The Saudi Aquaculture site employs 25 highly trained staff. They go on a monthly basis. They take samples from all operating farms in the kingdom to check for any known pathogens. They take samples of animals out in the wild to make sure that there's no pathogens that might harm the farms out in the wild. And they also test products that are coming in the country, that are imported. So we have one of the most tight and integrated biosecurity programs globally, and we're quite proud of that. Our second quality driver is that we have mandated all farms to be certified by the Best Aquaculture Practices Certification Scheme from the former Global Aquaculture Alliance. Now it's called Global Seafood Alliance. This is the new logo. This is a third-party auditing scheme, certification scheme. It's one of the 3 top known independent certification schemes for aquaculture. We have selected that because it has been developed by people from the industry, and we are pushing all our farms to be certified, third-party certified, with this international certification scheme. I think we've reached a rate of around 95 to 98% of what is being produced at the moment is certified by BAP. A couple of farms are not yet certified because of the COVID problems. Auditors could not come here, but by the end of the year they will be certified. And I think we're going to be the first country where we have all our industry being third-party certified. Our third quality driver is the SAMAC labeling. SAMAC stands for Saudi Arabian Mark of Aquaculture Quality. This is a local quality certification scheme. We have developed the Saudi Arabian Code for Responsible Aquaculture Practices. Not many countries have such a code, and this code serves as the standard setting document for SAMAC, the certification and labeling scheme of Saudi Arabia. We are working in parallel with BAP, with the Global Aquaculture Alliance, Best Aquaculture Practices. If you're BAP certified by a third-party auditor, then you're eligible to use the SAMAC logo. If not, but you are in the process of being certified, then we have a list of criteria taken from the BAP certification audits. If you comply with that, then you are awarded a certificate of compliance, and you are allowed to sell your products in the market with your label on one side, the tag of your company, and on the other side, the national quality label, SAMAC. We started this program a couple of years ago, and we had feedback from the market that products that are certified, properly labeled, are selling much better. Local consumers prefer them compared to the non-labeled ones. Again, our aim is to increase consumption, but also to increase visibility of local products, and also increase brand awareness for the companies that produce. So on one side is the national logo, on the other side is the label of the local farms. Our aim is to have all national products to be marketed under SAMAC that will indicate that these are local products and they're fresh and of very, very high quality. So to increase seafood consumption, we've started some pilot marketing actions. We had these banners in the supermarkets that we're working with. We distributed probably around 10,000 leaflets indicating what is SAMAC, what are the benefits, environmental benefits of aquaculture regarding freshness, sustainability, and so on. And we had very, very positive feedback from consumers. We have also developed the SAMAC showroom here in Riyadh. What we're trying to do is we're trying to change the experience for consumers when they go to buy seafood. So it's not like a smelly seafood store. It could be a nice experience where you go there, people explain to you what species are available, how they have been farmed, why they are of very good quality, what's their nutritional value, what are the ways you can cook this to your family and friends. We provide and we test the market with value-added products. So it's not just about the whole fish that many people find difficult to choose and buy, but we give prepackaged fish, processed fish, in fillets, in marinades, in ready to cook. So it's easier for the not experienced seafood consumer and buyer to buy the fish, to buy that product, and eat it and try it. We want to have market supply, adequate market supply, and create employment all along the seafood supply chain. And this way, we cover these areas that we're aiming to cover by developing the aquaculture industry here in Saudi Arabia. We have very ambitious plans. Initially, the plan was for 2030 to produce around 500,000 tons. That is probably the capacity we can produce. I don't expect we'll have that number reached by 2030 in 8 years, but this is a number we can definitely produce in the next decade. We're doing a lot of foundation background work, a lot of work in developing the industry in terms of research, marketing, and so on. Why are we positive that we can produce that? Because the Red Sea coastline has low industrialization, low urbanization. There's no wastewater runoff. There's no river runoff. There are no red tides, no eutrophication. There are suitable depths close to the shore between 30 and 80 meters. The wave length, the wave height are relatively low. And we're talking about pristine waters, very, very good water quality with good water circulation. We consider that the Red Sea is a gold mine for aquaculture. And that is taking into account the sensitivity of this ecosystem. We don't just pick any place to go and make the farms. We have very strict criteria. We have very strict monitoring processes. And we also work with the scientific teams of NEOM, Amala, and the Red Sea Project, where we can do projects, what type of projects. In some areas, we're going to do more land-based aquaculture. In some other areas, we're going to exploit the opportunities that are available in the open sea. So as I said, we have a very good market because we have an increasing population. It's a young population that they're prone to new lifestyle. They're much more health conscious. We start from a lower base. We have half the global seafood consumption. There are new consumption trends, mainly through the HoReCa sector and the online sales. We've seen seafood consumption increasing, seafood sales increasing through these channels. And we also have proximity to expanding international seafood markets. From our side, we have developed a business-friendly framework of procedures for licensing. There is government support. There are a number of incentives, financial incentives, and other type of incentives to develop aquaculture here, to further develop aquaculture in the country. There's been a lot of foundation work on site selection, on an allocation of the best available places for farming. There's been a lot of market analysis to increase confidence of investors that there is a market here. Definitely there is a lower energy cost compared to other countries and lower cost of land. And these are the two barriers for land-based recirculated aquaculture. There's very good logistics and infrastructure in the country. We've got lots of national and international ports, rail ports, and an extensive road network. So if now we move to production, what we've seen is that there is still a lot of unexploited potential for marine fish cage aquaculture along the coast, along selected areas of the coast of the Red Sea. We can improve, we can intensify shrimp farming and use the latest available technologies and know-how globally. There's definitely potential to develop RAS, recirculated aquaculture system, whether this is for freshwater or marine water species. We have to combine aquaculture, land aquaculture, freshwater aquaculture with aquaponics. And of course, there are opportunities for complementary businesses such as increasing production of aqua feed mills and also including alternative proteins such as insects, algae, bacteria. I'll talk about that in a while. Commercial hatcheries, again, there is investment potential there, and we're working with a number of players and the mega projects, NEOM in particular, to help develop more hatcheries. Logistics and distribution, we need to improve distribution of our products in the local market and international markets. And of course, there's huge room for investment in processing and product value adding. Again, I'll talk about processing and product value adding in the whole supply chain in a while. When we talk about aquaculture, we tend to think about the cages or the land-based systems, but it's also the feed, it's also the hatcheries that are part of the chain. It's also the raw material that goes to the feed, and then it's a processing part, the packaging part, the transport, and then the wholesale, retail, and also the HoReCa and the online sales. In brief, this is the chain, the supply chain, the value chain of aquaculture, and each chain has a specific role in the blue economy that we're discussing today. If it was not for this part, we wouldn't have the other parts. If it was not for the other parts, we wouldn't have this part. So it's all linked together. One other area which is important here for the country, and it relates to blue economy, is knowledge creation. Again, there is research potential to develop and apply innovative techniques for improving production efficiency and for having novel products out in the market. Knowledge creation is a big pillar for the blue economy in the years to come. So it's not just the production or the market or the investment, but how we also develop knowledge and apply knowledge, and we share knowledge globally is a very big part of the blue economy. And this gets into the point of why we need research and the knowledge economy. As I said, we're working with a number of species, local species. At the moment, the species that we have in the sea farming, there are established species. Up in the north, they came from the Suez Canal. Up in the south, they were found in close to Jizan. But we need to work with more native species for which there is a market, but we need to develop the know-how on how to farm these species. Salmon, we all know salmon. It's been an ongoing research for over 50 years. It took 20 years to start commercializing the knowledge for salmon. The same happened with sea bass and sea bream. To develop and commercialize knowledge on a number of species, it takes decades. We are pushing, we are funding the system. We're working a lot with cows to develop the know-how of species, of native species, which are fast growers. And through that process, we're working to improve the FCR, the biological FCR, because to farm the species, a number of species, yes, you might be able to close the biological cycle and have relatively good survival rate. But you also need to have good growth rate. You also need to have good survival. So that will have reduced economic FCR. We also need to improve nutrition. And nutrition is about growing the fish, it's about having sustainable feeds, and it's about giving the best that the fish needs according to its metabolic requirements. There's a lot of research on nutrition, there's a lot of research on disease prevention, and there is a lot of research on genomics. I'll spend a few minutes on nutrition, because with the targets that we are having to produce about 500,000 tons of seafood from aquaculture, that will require roughly about 1 million tons of seafood from feed mills. Usually in feed, we have fish meal and fish oil, but there are also another of essential nutrients, minerals, amino acids, and we complement these with vegetable extracts. And that has been under the pressure of many NGOs to reduce dependence on fish meal and fish oil. Now we're talking about carnivorous fish, and we switch them to be omnivorous or herbivorous, and that has been proven that's very good. That's not good for the welfare. But environmentally, to produce these plants and have these hectares, we have huge plantation. We need huge areas of land, many of which come from deforestation. They use a lot of water, sometimes or most times pesticides, and they need to be transferred for processing in huge distances. So it's not really, the environmental footprint is huge in these alternative and more sustainable, as they were initially thought, ingredients for feed. But there are solutions. We can have byproducts from the seafood industry, from the processing industry. We can have very good quality oils and proteins from algae, and definitely from insect meal. And as knowledge has developed, from bacteria-based proteins. Going back to the seafood industry, that was a study done a couple of years ago. For salmon, it was found that over 40% there are trimmings and leftovers, and all that can be used, can be processed for fish meal. Of course, the rules that we have is that we never use the leftovers and the processed leftovers for feed of one species for the same species. We're not turning these to cannibalistic species. So there are very, very strict rules on where we can use leftovers from the seafood industry and for which species. And there's very, very high control there. Algae is another very interesting ingredient that we can make. It's the lower part of the food chain for marine animals naturally. It's a very good protein replacement. There are very many ways of producing algae. We do have, excuse me, we do have an ambitious program with cows, with Beacon Development Company of cows at the moment to develop the algal biotechnology. The project is being led by Dr. Claudio Grunwald. He's a new addition to the team here, but with a very, very long experience in algae. The plan is that we can use algae to produce not just animal feed, but cosmetics, nutraceuticals, pharmaceutical and vitamins, food for humans, fertilizers, biofuel, bioplastics, feedstock, everything. And this is the plan to find out which species, which strains are available here, how we can experimentally grow them in a pilot scale, and then see which industry can use these products for commercialization. Claudio estimates that if we use a 10-hectare farm, we can produce about 370 tons of biomass per year. Unprocessed, that has a value of $1.2 billion. If you go through processing into any of these products that I showed you earlier, then the market value can go up to 130, 140 billion US dollars. So we're putting a lot of emphasis on algae production here in Saudi Arabia. Insect meal is again a very, very good alternative for complementing and supplementing fish meal and fish oil. It might sound yucky to many, but it's very, very high quality protein. And keep in mind that fish larvae, when they're in shallow waters, they feed on insects. We all have the picture of the salmon fishermen or the trout fishermen in very nice scenic rivers where they fly fishing. They're using insects as a bait or imitation of insects. So it has been part of the natural diet of many fish. Here in Saudi Arabia, we do have a lot of organic waste that can be properly colonized by the soldier fly, and we can produce very, very good quality. We actually use the larvae. We don't grow the whole animal to fly, but this is very, very high quality protein. Insect meal now, it's being commercially produced for a number of years. It has been licensed in the European Union and other countries to use insect meal. It's one of the potential alternative proteins that FAO, the Food and Agriculture Organization, is also believing that it could have a success. And the last one is how we can use bacteria-based proteins. Where we have chemoautotrophs animals, bacteria that we use, we ferment them, and we produce high quality protein. Again, there's methanotrophic bacteria. There are methods. We have had investors interested in Saudi Arabia. It doesn't require huge land. It requires the proper facility, but with the proper facility, you can produce very, very good cell protein ingredients. A combination of that is when you ferment algae. And a couple of years ago, there was an international award given to Veramaris. It's a company that it produces marine microalgae, it ferments it, and it produces omega-3 oil. 1 ton of omega-3 Veramaris oil, it saves 60 tons of wild-caught fish. So knowledge is developing. We need to be at the forefront in order to be more sustainable. And again, knowledge is something that it is at the core of the blue economy. So if that was the original picture of the segments of the blue economy associated with aquaculture, now we have trimmings, the seafood industry byproducts, we have the algae, we have the insects, we have the bacteria. All that becomes part of the blue economy for aquaculture. We have algae growth, and then that is on production, but there is knowledge to be gained also from the market. And that is because we need to understand that the market is no longer about whole fish. Not many people, especially not the younger generation, are willing to buy and go out and buy a whole fish, not on a regular basis. Fish has to be properly labeled so they know what they're buying. It must be properly presented so it has all the information, nutritional information, the species and everything. And then it also has to be presented in a more convenient form. All these are products of one species, but they're much more conveniently purchased by consumers. We need to understand competition for fish, because it's not about producing fish, it's about also properly marketing and supplying the market with fish. Local aquaculture products are in competition with imported fresh fish, with the total fresh fish segment, with frozen fish, with value-added fish that is found in the market, with meat products and processed value-added products of meat. In essence, it's one market for all food products. When you go to buy fish, you are confronted with a wide variety of foods. So you have to make your product much more attractive and convenient to your target group. This is what was done with salmon. When salmon started being produced at high volumes, it needed to expand its consumer base, its customer base and consumer base. So, first they started tagging it, improving awareness on what this fish is, and then start filleting, marinating, doing all these hundreds of different codes of products that are available now in the market. So again, there is a lot of research associated with the marketing part of aquaculture, whether we're talking about ready-to-cook products or ready-to-eat products. There is a lot of know-how that needs to be developed, and it has been developed in certain areas and on certain products and certain raw materials globally. So we add one more segment in the blue economy chain here. These are the contributors to the Saudi blue economy and the GDP. It's production of farm fish, production of shrimp, of algae, production of processed and value-added products, production of novel ingredients from algae processing. It's exporting either unprocessed or processed products. There is direct employment in the farms. There's a lot of private infrastructure investment in aquaculture, and that contributes to GDP. And then we have also to include retail sales from local seafood, increased seafood consumption, and the public investment that is related to aquaculture, whether this is on R&D project or studies and marketing campaigns and so on. And there's also the indirect part, which is employment in research, in environmental monitoring, in product quality controls, in maintenance equipment, and so on. So we have the direct and indirect contributors. Again, infrastructure investment in seafood packaging and processing, investment in aquafeed production and operation of aquafeed, and so on, and for novel aquafeed ingredients as well. So in a nutshell, this is the contribution of aquaculture to the blue economy, the existing and the potential contribution to the Saudi blue economy from aquaculture. We want to move out from the high volume of imports, which are often of low quality, and we need to reduce the trade deficit and the loss of potential GDP. We won't have more supply of high quality local products. We won't have local products produced and traded here and support the country's GDP. It's an ambitious plan, but we consider that aquaculture now is a pillar of national growth and progress. It can contribute to the prosperity of the country. We have the support of the Crown Prince on that, and we are hopeful that we will achieve our goals sooner rather than later. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Philippos, for a fascinating presentation and explaining the importance of aquaculture in Saudi Arabia's blue economy. It was really informative. Now the floor is open to questions. Please use the raise hand button if you have a question, or use the chat window to post your questions.
Yeah. Shall I just?
Please do.
Yes. Please.
Okay. Thank you for the wonderful presentation. You have flagged the potential for meeting the blue economy targets in Saudi Arabia. And you have also stated the state-of-the-art technology that is right now being used in improving the production from aquaculture. I have just one question, is that when the product from the aquaculture comes to the market, how does it compare the price per unit, the price per kilogram? How does it compare with the captured fisheries product that comes to the same market? Because you are using high tech, does it really reduce the cost of production? Yeah, that's what I would like.
Yes, it's a very valid question. Globally, what we've seen is that products of aquaculture have a more competitive price compared to products of either local capture fisheries or imported products. Usually the products that are being produced from aquaculture is more high-value species. Although now we are producing, there's a lot of production in carps and tilapias. And this is really the solution to food security. Low-value species with high production potential. The unit cost, usually it's much lower than the capture fisheries. The two things we need to remember. One is that, as you scale up, the initial investment is high, comparatively high. But as you scale up, the unit cost drops significantly. So overall, the cost is competitive. No one is starting a business without a business plan that will show that the product will be priced competitively in the market compared to the capture fisheries alternative. But what is interesting is that when we have aquaculture, from the moment the fish is harvested, it goes straight into to ice. That's how the fish die. They have a big bin with lots of flaky ice. Fish goes there, they die within minutes. And then that cold chain is maintained from the boat or from the tank to the processing facility, which is a cold facility. It's being sorted according to site, put in polystyrene boxes with ice, closed, transferred through freezer tracks to the market. So all along the supply course, the cold chain is followed. The shelf life, the quality and shelf life of aquaculture product is guaranteed, and that gives an additional value to the product. And this is also because we farm fish throughout the year. We have consistent availability of a certain product of consistent quality. You cannot deviate quality if you have certified processes. So it was not so much the consumers at the beginning, it was mainly the main retailers that they usually have, they guarantee the product on behalf of the producers, that they started embracing products of aquaculture. This is how products of aquaculture started being used widely, because the main retailers, they got their products in the market. Yes, what you see now is that salmon, trout, sea bass, sea bream, Asian sea bass, shrimp, is the price of these products in the market when it comes from aquaculture. It's much more competitive than it is from local fisheries. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Philippos, for answering the question. And there is another question from Dr. Abdur Rahman. Dr. Abdur Rahman, you can ask a question.
Hello.
Hello.
Thank you, Dr. Philippos, for your nice presentation. I have actually a couple of questions. The basic question is, I would like to know why NFDB is not or under considering Eastern Province, including Arabian Gulf, for aquaculture development. There are many issues, other than environmental issues. What may be the main reasons why MEWA or NFDB is not promoting Arabian Gulf for aquaculture? There are many shallow bays. Pen culture can be developed. There are many candidate species. There are rich source of algal weeds for algal culture, and there are many abundant platform. This platform can be used to tag cages, fish cages, and also when I say this, in a lot of farms are there. Agriculture farms are there in Al Hassa Eastern region. So there are many species, particularly tilapia, gift genetically improved farm tilapia, citrallada tilapia. All these strains can be, even the growth, we can expect 1 kilo, more than 1 kilo per 10 months, such kind of tilapia. these are not there. So I'd like to know what is the main reason behind this to under consider this region to promote or enhance aquaculture? This is my first question. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. You're absolutely right. But what we are doing is not yet visible. So we're working with cows over 6 years now on improving efficiency of the currently produced species, but also on improving knowledge and know-how on and adapting, well, not adapting, adapting for aquaculture, local species. We're working with a big number of species. The idea is to funnel these species. We don't want many species out in the market. As I said, salmon is one species and it has billions of dollars of research over the past 50 years. It's one species that has conquered the world, but with many product types in the market. Even now, there is very, very heavy research on pathology issues of salmon, on nutritional issues of salmon, on husbandry issues of salmon. The same for sea bass and sea bream in the Mediterranean. The same for hamor in Southeast Asia. The same for shrimp. It's ongoing research even for the existing species, the more known species, which are really a handful. It takes a lot of effort and many years of research to manage to produce competitively another species. Tilapia has been emerging in that sector, freshwater tilapia, and so has carp in China. But these are not high-value species for certain markets. These are very good species. For example, carps are fantastic species and catfish for the Chinese market, but it's not a species that the rest of the world would appreciate that much as salmon is, or sea bass or sea bream, or hamor is, or grouper. The same is with tilapia. These are very, very good candidates for tackling the issue of food security in some countries. For high-value species, again, we are working with a number of species. Research takes years. It's not about closing the biological cycle, which is one thing. Then is how much is the survival? You might be able to breed the fish. You might be able to have the eggs, hatch them properly, feed them properly, grow them to a reasonable size, to put them in a tank or in a cage. But at what survival rate? At what growth rate? And then at what FCR when you start growing further? So it's a very long research process. We cannot expect results within 3 or 4 or 5 years. We're using all the technological tools that are available, all the knowledge that is available from other species. But for example, genomics is a wide field, a scientific field that has helped us a lot. But still, it takes time. For freshwater, we are working with KU, with King Abdulaziz University. We have, again, a very extensive research project on freshwater species. And the plan is to develop also a big research center, freshwater research center in the kingdom. So freshwater is in our radar, and we're working on it. Marine fish is in our radar. We're working already with heavy investment in research. Processing, we're working with a number of players in the country to develop a private-public partnership in processing of seafood and supply the market. Market and marketing, we have developed SAMAC to promote local products, the quality of local products. We are doing marketing research, and we are about to start an extensive marketing campaign for local products. Distribution networks, again, in our strategy, we have one initiative to try and make producers have a common distribution network so that they have more leverage over retailers, and they can maintain the quality all along the supply chain, because usually you have very, very good quality right until you have the fish at the gate of the farm. But then it's down to the wholesaler how they're going to transport the fish. No, we need to make either cooperatives or companies that will be competent enough, they will follow the rules, that they will distribute these products to the market at the right time, at the right quality. We've got dozens of initiatives to cover the whole area that the industry needs, from research to market to production support to feed. You know, as I showed you, we are welcoming investment in bacteria-based proteins, in algae. We're working on algae for a number of products and byproducts. We are in touch with companies to develop insect meal plants here. We are in touch with existing feed mills here in the country to improve efficiency, have better formulas in the feeds, depending on we have to have specific formulas depending on the metabolic requirements of the species, of the season, and of the size, the age of the fish. So it's not just one type that fits all. And KAUS at the moment is working on improving the formulas, the feed formulas for a number of species. Again, it's species related, size and age related of the fish, and season related. So it's quite complicated. I can assure you we're working on all these fronts quite intensively.
And second, most important question, inbreeding. Inbreeding is one of the most important issues in Red Sea, along the Red Sea coast, particularly for sabaki tilapia, Oreochromis spilurus. So my question, do you support research program for selective breeding of this kind of fishes? Selective breeding.
Yes, we support selective breeding for all species. It's part of our program to do selective breeding, but we have to be very careful on the species that we select. We might have hybrids, but when we're talking about species which are not native or endemic to the environment, we need to be very careful on how we're going to move on with these. One way of doing so is to produce sterile offsprings. We don't want out in the sea species that could grow and could have an impact into the natural environment. There is a lot of work that needs to be done on spilurus, on marine tilapia. You know, tilapia was not originally a marine species. It can tolerate high salinity. It doesn't grow yet that well. It has potential. We're at a very, very early stage of research in that field. It is promising. The results that we have are promising, but we need to be very careful, both on our projections, but also on the route to get there.
Thank you, Mr. Philippos. And one more question from Dr. Yu-J Lin.
Hi, thank you for the nice presentation. I just make my question quick. Can you elaborate how do you mitigate the negative impact of aquaculture? For example, the possible risk of introduced species, the degradation of the environment around the cultural site. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I get a bit nervous when I hear people talking about negative impact of aquaculture in the environment, because definitely there have been bad practices in the past, not here, but globally. These were bad practices either because of ignorance or because of, you know, bad practices as per se. There is knowledge developed and there are practices developed to mitigate these environmental issues. There are standards that certify, third-party audit standards that certify that farms operate at a very high standard and that they don't have an impact. There are very, very many ways of monitoring potential impact, mitigating that, and being proactive. So what I always advocate is that, yes, aquaculture has had its bad days, but all in all, I think at the moment, No, I don't think, I'm certain at the moment, it's the most sustainable way of producing food, and the knowledge, the technology, and the husbandry practice that we have ensure that there is no irreversible or any negative impact. In our region, in Saudi Arabia, there has not been any signs of eutrophication. There have not been any scientifically proven signs of negative environmental impact. We have quite strict rules, and we are getting even more strict. We see that close to the farms, we have in the mooring lines of the farms, we have very high growth of corals. Now the question there, which means that the water are clean, the question there, whether these coral species are opportunistic or not, or whether that would be part of the natural environment. But still, that is an indication that the environment is clean. We're not using chemicals, we're not using antibiotics, we're not using any, the quality of feed is very, very high. So we're not using all these things that people could think that they are contributing to a negative impact on the environment. Certainly not in Saudi Arabia, and certainly not in developed countries. The rules, the monitoring rules are very, very, very strict. Going back to the species, yes, you are correct. When these species were selected, sea bream up north, which is meager was found. Meager was one species. It was found already in the wild. There is some evidence that sea bream was there maybe before the farms. It had passed through the Suez Canal. Some debate that, I don't know. We are planning to research that. And the other one is Asian sea bass. Asian sea bass was found in the southern parts of the Red Sea. It's found in the middle parts of the Red Sea. There were two options. Either start researching on native species in the next, that would take 10 to 15 years to commercialize species, or move with a species for which there is global know-how and species that can be found in the region. I totally agree. It's a gray area that can be found. No one is comfortable with that. That decision was taken years ago. We had no right to stop the business growing before we had an alternative. We're working closely with research institutes, working closely also with NEOM, and they say, how soon you can phase out the established species with new species. And the answer is as soon as possible. Really, as soon as possible, we will go there. But what do? Do we close the businesses that exist now? Do we just shut down all the experience and the infrastructure that has been invested? My answer is no, because the way that we monitor the potential impact in the environment shows that there has not been any.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Philippos. And there are no more questions in the chat box, as well as there is no raise hand button raised by the participants. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Philippos, for answering the questions.
Shiva, can you quickly check the chat window?
Sorry?
There was like one question in the chat, how we increase the cell for tilapia, because it is more like a low quality fish. So
how we can increase what? How
can you increase the cell of tilapia? How can you
fantastic
make tilapia
question.
More?
Yes, okay, very interesting. The beauty of tilapia is that it's a low cost in terms of production fish. I'm talking about freshwater tilapia. So people certainly are not going to buy thousands of tons of whole fish, whole tilapia. Some people will continue to do so, but the majority, the market, is going to value-added, convenient products. we do have a program. We do push local producers to start cooperating with each other, and the ADF, the Agriculture Development Fund, could give seed funding for that to start processing the fish. It will be at a very tilapia can produce fillets at a very competitive price, and this is the beauty of this fish. What we want to mimic is the performance of freshwater tilapia in the water, because that way we're going to have a very well, an affordable cost, high value fillets. So yes, it's a very valid point. We cannot sell bulks of fish as whole fish, but the future of the seafood market is on fillets, on pre-cooked fish, on you know, different. There's a wide variety of different cuts and presentation of fish: gutted, scaled, headed, and so on. Tilapia is an ideal species for that. If you go to the supermarket, on Lulu, on Panda, on Carrefour, you see that they started using their own processing. So they buy the whole fish from local producers at a price, and then they open it, they gut it, they scale it, they put some marinades, they wrap it with all the information, and they sell it at three times the cost of the tilapia in the bench. So this is a way to capitalize on the market. And really, tilapia is an ideal species for that.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Philippos, for answering all the questions raised by the participants. And thank you everyone for your attention. If the participants have any questions, you can contact the presenter directly through email. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much for the invitation.
Thank you very much. Without taking much time, let's move to the next presentation, which will be given by Dr. Vivekananda. He'll be presenting on the topic, Fisheries Assessment in the Context of the Blue Economy. Dr. Vivekananda is a research scientist with over 40 years experience in marine fisheries. He was associated primarily with the Central Marine Fishery Research Institute, India, and also served as a consultant in many regional organizations, including KFUPM. He has pioneered the research on marine fish population dynamics, stock assessment, climatic change, marine mammals, and marine ecosystem modeling. He has authored several research articles, book chapters, and books, and also conducted many international training programs on marine ecosystem and fisheries. With this brief introduction, I invite Dr. Vivekananda to deliver his presentation. Over to Dr. Vivekananda.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dr. Shivashankar. I'm also thankful to the KFUPM, the Center for Environment and Marine Studies, for giving me this opportunity. Well, I consider it a great honor to be here among all of you. And well, this is, I would say, at the right time, this Blue Economy workshop is being conducted by the center. And as we were discussing, I find that there's a need for more and more collective effort, because the topics which we are dealing about blue economy, it certainly needs a collective effort, like aquaculture, tourism, fisheries, etc. So, well, I also like to acknowledge that my role or my contribution to the Center for Environment and Marine Studies, because I was there for quite some time. And what I am going to present here is mostly the experience which I gained when I was there in the KFUPM, in which time I also actually I have prepared the marine fisheries management plan. So that has come in handy now. So I would like to say that I will be sharing my experience during that period. Well, with that, I will go to my presentation. But can you see the slides?
Yes, Dr. Vivekananda, we can see your slide, but we would like to see your presentation in a full screen mode.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Now you are able to see. Okay. Thank you. So my presentation will be on fisheries assessment in the context of blue economy. The last presentation by Mr. Philippos was mainly on developing the production through aquaculture. But in my presentation, I'll be giving more emphasis on sustaining the fisheries production from marine capture fisheries, because I think we do not have that much of opportunity to increase fish production from capture fisheries, though we have marginal scope of increasing the production. So my emphasis here will be to sustain the fisheries production as well as contribute to blue economy. Can you see my second slide?
Yes, sir.
Can you
Yes,
see?
sir.
You can? My second slide, you are able to see?
Yes, we are able to see your
Okay,
slide.
okay. Because there was some problem of slides moving, that's why I was asking this question. Okay, so where blue economy has mainly three related but very distinct meanings. There are many definitions on blue economy, but I have chosen this one, which says that there are three related by very distinct meanings. The first one is increasing the contribution of the oceans to the national economy. The second is addressing environmental and ecological sustainability of the oceans. And the third one is ocean economy as livelihood enhancement for communities. So if you can replace the word oceans in each of the 3 points, like increasing the contribution of fisheries to the national economy and addressing the environmental and ecological sustainability of fisheries, ocean economy as livelihood enhancement for the communities, like fisheries economy as livelihood enhancement for the communities. Then you fit the fisheries into the blue economy. I would just like to show the Vision 2030 of Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, which exactly is trying to address this blue economy opportunities. So the first objective of Vision 2030 of Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, that it wants to be a pioneering and successful global model of excellence in all fronts. The strategic objective of the nodal ministry for fisheries, that is Ministry of Environment, Water and Agriculture, says that it wants to contribute to ensuring sustainable food security. One of the key objectives of MEWA is to achieve vital resource security. So the other objectives was to develop engagement, communication channels and engagement between government, private sector and the public, and then encourage government agencies to improve the quality of the services and adopt best practices in government institutions in human capital development, and also make use of international best practices to achieve goals in a balanced and scientific manner. So this is exactly, these visions and objectives fits exactly into the blue economy objectives, as well as the objectives and the contribution of fisheries to the blue economy. So my presentation will be hovering around these main objectives of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. I would also like to say that the main goal of the ministry is to sustainably increase the fish production with the aim to increase per capita fish consumption from 10 kilogram to 20 kilogram by the within a short period as possible, and also increase fish export from 50,000 tons to 0.6 million tons by the year 2030. So there are two facilitating instruments to achieve and to fulfill this aim. One is the National Vision 2030, and then other one is the National Transformation Program. So there are platforms already available, and how these aims and goals could be met with, I think that is what we want to discuss in this workshop. Now, just briefly into the fish production trend in Saudi Arabia. You can see on the left-hand side, the catch trend from capture fisheries in the last 20 years, 2001 to 2020. This is taken from the Ministry of Environment, Water and Agriculture, Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. So here you see that on the left-hand side, you see three lines. One is the bottom line, the blue one is the production or the capture from the Red Sea. The middle line is from the Arabian Gulf, and the top one is the total for the Saudi Arabia. That is a combination of Arabian Gulf as well as the Red Sea. So if you can see that by the year 2020, you can see that the capture fisheries production is about nearly 1/3 in the Red Sea and about 2/3 in the Arabian Gulf. You can also see that the total production, the green line at the top, you can see that the capture fisheries production has not increased, at least in the last 10 to 12 years. So it is stagnating at around somewhere around 65 to 70,000 tons in the last maybe 10 to 12 year period. Similar thing has happened in the Red Sea as well. There is some marginal increase in the Arabian Gulf. The difference between the fishery in the Arabian Gulf and the Red Sea is that in the Arabian Gulf, you have many industrial boats, particularly the trawlers, which are larger in size, compared to the Red Sea boats, which are mostly the traditional type of boats. But compared to the stagnation which you are seeing in the capture fisheries production in general in Saudi Arabia, you can see that the production from aquaculture has seen very steep increase in the last 20 years, particularly in the last 10 years or so. So the production from aquaculture has increased to nearly about 75,000 tons and in the last, let us say, 7 or 8 year period. So on one hand, you have to have sustainability in production from capture fisheries, and on the other side, you have the jumping production from the aquaculture. So the opportunities appear to be different between these two subsectors as far as the blue economy is concerned. Little more details about the status of fisheries, marine fisheries in Saudi Arabia. Here, there is this I have taken from a research paper published by Al-Nafisa in the year, it's a very recent paper in 2021. So here it says that it is comparing the yield from capture fisheries with the maximum sustainable yield. So maximum sustainable yield is the yield which we can get year after year without any diminishing in the yield. So if you can see the total for Saudi Arabia, you can see that there is scope for marginally increasing the yield from 62,000 tons to about 73,000 tons. There is a marginal scope for increasing the yield. And this increase in the yield can come from the Arabian Gulf, but not from the Red Sea. So what about the fishing effort here in this region is, if you see again, the number of boats that are operating is 10,900, about 11,000. And there is scope that it can be increased to about 12,500. So there is opportunity to increase the number of boats by about 1,500. Again, mostly in the Arabian Gulf region. So there is scope for increasing yield, but not very great, which is about 18%. And somewhere around 1,500 boats can be added. But the question here is that the answer is not very simple as it looks like. We are not very sure which species can be targeted and what type of craft and gear combination should be used to achieve the maximum sustainable yield. And for this, we need species by species stock assessment that is required to identify which are the species that could be targeted, on which we can increase the yield, and which are the species for which we have to have restriction in fishing effort. So these are some important scientific investigation that needs to be done in Saudi Arabia. And also, we also should know what is the economic feasibility. When you add more number of boats, what is the maximum economic yield? I think these are some of the questions which you need to answer if we want to achieve the maximum sustainable yield in the kingdom. There are many management measures for as far as the capture fisheries is concerned in the kingdom. And I have just listed a few very important management measures, like closure of shrimp trawl fisheries in 6 months period, for 6 months period, closure of Spanish mackerel drift gillnet fishery for 3 months, mesh size regulation for trawl fishery, ban on shark finning, limit on the number of days per voyage, and then cap on the number of traps per voyage, fishing ban around offshore installations, restoration programs of critical habitats, and then designation of marine protected areas. These are some of the very important management measures that are prevalent now to protect the resources. But what I find is that many of the things have to continue, but at the same time, they need to be strengthened. These management measures need to be strengthened by improving implementation measures, proper implementation or effective implementation measures. That is what it is required. And at the same time, I would like to say that many of these measures that I have listed here, many of them in fisheries management parlance, we call them as input control measures. That is, you try to restrict or regulate the fishing effort or fishing practices. But what we require is much a larger canvas if you want to really achieve fisheries sustainability. Input control measures to some extent will be useful, but it will not address many areas of concern for which you need to have a larger canvas or expanded scope of management framework you need. So what I try to suggest here is that we need to have 3-tier approach for sustaining the capture fisheries and also to achieve the blue growth. One is maintaining and improving the current management measures, the list which I showed in the previous slide, and then creating an environment for adopting a few contemporary, very modern management measures. There are very modern management measures that are available now, which are globally tested, which some of them can be applied to Saudi Arabian fisheries. And also there is a need for scaling up management regime to the regional level. I think these are some of the 3-tier approach which need to be followed if you want to achieve blue growth as well as sustain the fisheries in Saudi Arabia. I've just given a few objectives that could be addressed in the fisheries management framework that could be thought of in the Arabian Gulf as well as in the Red Sea. The first one is enhancing the health of marine living resources by promoting best fishing practices. Number 2 is restoring and conserving fish habitats and ecosystems. Number 3 is investing in fisheries development. Number 4 is promoting coordination and implementation of regional and global initiatives. Number 5 is improving capacity for management at all levels. Number 6, which will be cross-cutting among these 5 objectives, is generating and managing fisheries data and knowledge. And then number 7 is engaging stakeholders at multiple levels, from production to consumption at different nodal points in the supply chain. I will go slightly into details of each one of these objectives. The first objective is enhancing health of marine living resources by promoting best fishing practices. There are some issues. One is that there is a potential overfishing for some fish stocks in the Arabian Gulf as well as in the Red Sea. So the potential measures that could be followed to overcome this issue is to regulate the fishing capacity. By fishing capacity, I mean there are many things here. One is to regulate the fishing effort, regulate the craft and gear combinations, regulate the meshes, etc., etc. There is a whole range of things which we can think of in addition to whatever is being followed now as a management measure. And then, as I said earlier, we need to have introduce output control measures. The very developed fisheries management measures suggest that we need to have an output control measure. And I think Saudi Arabia could follow output control measure. Output control measure is to have a cap on the quantity of catch, not simply the quantity of effort, but also on the quantity of catch. So you need to have that. You can have only this much of harvest from the natural resources for a particular species of fish or shrimp. So output control measure is working very well in many countries, and I think it is very much possible in a country like Saudi Arabia, but we need to do some background. We need to collect some background information as well as do some analysis, like species by species stock assessment, etc., and also the economics part of it. And then another issue is the bycatch issue. There are many species which are caught before they attain the first maturity, or they are caught when they are juveniles. And also some of them do not, some species, adult fishes, which do not find adequate market. So they are called the bycatch. So we need to have a minimum legal size at capture to avoid capture of juveniles, and then trawl closure in nursery areas. There are a whole range of other measures which I'm not giving the entire list here. And also there could be a possibility of bycatch reduction devices, particularly in the case of the trawl net. This is useful for avoiding the capture of some of the charismatic species like the dolphins or the sea turtles, etc. So these issues need a wider potential measures as far as the management is concerned. The second objective is restoring and conserving fish habitats and ecosystems. There is a great knowledge that is being developed that conserving fish species by species or single species conservation is not going to help. What is required is conservation of the ecosystem and the habitats. So fishing affects the ecosystem, and if the ecosystems are not healthy, it affects the fishery as well, or the fish stocks. So we have to look at fishing practices and fish conservation from ecosystem point of view. So what is required is spatial restriction of trawling, as well as earmarking some areas as marine protected area or no fishing zone. And also we have the ghost fishing issue, particularly for the traps which are defunct and discarded in the sea. They continue to catch the fish, and which is of no use to anybody. So gear marking and how many of these traps are discarded in the sea, who is discarding, who is the owner of this. So that type of gear marking and try to reach out to those owners will be useful. These are a few management measures that could be thought of. And then balanced harvesting to avoid fishing down food web. It means that the target fishery is mostly on the predatory fishes, high value predatory fishes like the groupers, the kingfish, etc., barracudas. So there need to be a balanced harvesting so that the predators alone, like the sharks, alone are not removed. There has to be a rational exploitation of these predators, which can be done through balanced harvesting. Then there's a loss of critical habitats. That is, we need to have, the kingdom needs to have extensive habitat restoration programs, like the restoration of seagrass beds is one important aspect that has to be focused upon, so that the habitat restoration will also improve the habitat health for the fishes to spawn and multiply in the critical habitats. Objective 3 is investing in fisheries and aquaculture development. The opportunities appear to be good here, as Mr. Philippos was telling in the case of aquaculture in the previous lecture. There is no fishery for small pelagic because there is not much of market for small pelagic resources like the sardines, mackerel, but the abundance of these resources has been reported to be good. So there is a possibility that these resources can be tapped by harvested and marketed. But there need to be an intensive survey to know how much is the biomass of these small pelagics by doing some pilot fishing, and also assessment of market potential. I think this is a scope for as far as the improving and developing the fishery is concerned. And then scope for many value-added projects, as we have seen in the earlier talk as well. So utilizing existing facilities or creating new facilities for value addition of the products and improving the markets for selected resources. I think these are some of the points which were highlighted very well in the previous lecture by Mr. Philippos. And then again, the aquaculture potential could be fully tapped by strengthening aquaculture activities. I will not go into the details because we had the presentation previously. The fourth objective is promoting coordination and implementation of regional and global initiatives. This is very important as far as the Arabian Gulf, as well as Red Sea fisheries is concerned. This is mainly because almost every fish stock which is available in Saudi Arabia is transboundary in nature. So they migrate and they cut across the national boundaries and they go into the next nearby countries, many fish stocks. So if one country has some management measure, let us say preventing juvenile capture, but the other country is not having that type of measure, it's not going to serve the cause of overall stock management. So what is required is that at least for major transboundary stock, like the kingfish, we need to have a regional coordination and implementation mechanism. So what is required here is that sort of a conversation between the country. There are many platforms that are available within the Gulf region as well as in the Red Sea region. So what is required is that regulating fishing capacity on a regional scale, and by strengthening coordination and implementation of agreed management actions at regional level. It may not be easy to achieve, but I think it is very important. And if you want to managing the fishery resources on pan-Gulf and pan-Red Sea level is very much important, even in the interest of Saudi Arabia. And also the regional and global initiatives like developing and implementing action plans for the Code of Conduct for Responsible Fisheries by the FAO, ecosystem approach to fisheries management, and voluntary guideline for small-scale fisheries, again advocated by the FAO, Food and Agriculture Organization, is very, very important for adoption in Saudi Arabia. The objective 5 is improving the institutions and the management skill. I would suggest that there is a need for establishing a dedicated research center for fisheries and aquaculture. There is a lot of scientific research that needs to be done in the kingdom to improve fishery sustainably and sustainably manage fisheries and aquaculture. I think there is need for a dedicated research center or a research institute in the kingdom to address some of the scientific aspects. And also there is a need for regular training to improve the skills of the managers. So if you want to have the management measures, which are all very, very modern and also very contemporary in nature, I think there is a need for regular training to improve the skills of the managers, either in the government side or in the non-governmental side. The objective 6 is generating and managing fisheries data and information and knowledge. I think this is very important aspect, and the Gulf and the country is lacking in the data as far as the capture fisheries is concerned. So there is a need for proper data collection and analysis on a continuous basis. There's a need to develop and implement national marine fisheries data acquisition as well as analysis plan. What is available is simple landing of fish is available, but we need much more information than that. So this should lead into regular stock assessment and economic analysis with high temporal, spatial, and species level resolution. This is very, very scientific, important scientific input that is required for achieving sustainable fisheries and as well as for management. Objective 7 is engaging stakeholders at multiple levels, regular training programs to improve the skills on different aspects of management measures at different nodal points in the supply chain, as well as engaging stakeholders in the supply chain. I think these are very important for going ahead with the management options in Saudi Arabia. And then there is a need for creating an enabling environment for transformation towards an advanced management regime. I have just flagged 3 points here. One is adopting ecosystem approach to fisheries management. So there's a need to transform fisheries from species level management towards ecosystem level management. And this will work well with critical habitats. Now, you can also think of the fishery practice as well for ecosystem approach, like trawl fishery ecosystem. So there are immense opportunities here. This is a good way of looking at managing at the ecosystem level. And then adaptation to climate change. There is a need to adapt to the changing fishery in the context of climate change. Both fish as well as the fish stocks are concerned, as well as the fishing communities are concerned, and also to establish fuel efficiency norms in the fishing sector, and to maintain climate change, mainstream climate change into fisheries management framework. I think this is very important. So for every action, this climate change has to be put in the forefront to address the issues. And then focusing on advocating marine spatial zones, to advocate effective policy process to analyze and allocate ocean space for competing human activities. When you talk about blue economy or blue growth, this is one important aspect. There will be conflicting interest of different sectors like tourism, aquaculture, fishery. There are so many other things, oil exploration. So there need to be a spatial planning if we want the development of all these sectors to grow. So my concluding remarks here would be that the blue economy need to be implemented by balancing economic growth with nurturing sustainable ecosystems, and through a scientific and cross-sector effort, the blue economy endeavor could be made less expensive, more affordable, and profitable in the long run. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Vivekanandan, for the interesting talk, very informative. Now the floor is open to questions. Please ask your questions by using the raise hand option or using the chat window. And there is a question from Dr. Abdur Rahman.
Thank you, sir, for your very informative and updated presentation about the fisheries of Saudi Arabia. And I remember our past experience with you here. And my questions are basically two questions. One, sir, you mentioned about the scope of enhancing or increasing fishing effort, in particular in Arabian Gulf, to enhance fisheries production, blue economy. So actually, sir, when I see the statistics, actually you have analyzed that real fishery workers, those who are going for fishing, not Saudi fishermen, their number is quite high in the Arabian Gulf. At the same time, number of boats are very less. And at the same, in case of Red Sea, the number of boats are quite high. At the same time, fishery workers are also quite high. So in total, in summary, one fishery worker per boat in Red Sea. At the same time, 3 fishery worker per boat in the Arabian Gulf. So fisherman productivity is also an important factor there in terms of effort. So my another issue related to this is that in Arabian Gulf, for example, many fish landing centers, they closed permanently. Instead, they did not open a new fish landing center. So either they merge with the nearest landing center. So here problem is that small fishermen, those who use small tarat boat, they cannot go far distance for fishing. So they are losing many fishing grounds nearby area since they are forced to move to some other landing center. So this is the one question, sir. So is this actually speaking is there because proposal for issuing new license for fishing boat, I think it may not be possible in the they are already closed for a long time. So is there any option to increase the fisherman productivity and similarly the infrastructure facilities? The second question, sir, to enhance blue production, blue economy. See, sir, you know that huge quantity of bycatch is being thrown back to the sea, either as dead or it is not used in the shrimp trawl season, particularly. If there is an option to bring this bycatch to the landing center, there must be a buyer, there must be a processing plant. So many byproducts can be produced in the kingdom and it can be marketed through this way. Fisheries production can be enhanced. Right? So what is your opinion about this suggestion, sir? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Abdul. Both are very valid points which you have flagged. Yes, the first question is there really an opportunity for increasing the fishing effort? I think that was the very first question. That is a very valid question, I would say. In fact, when I was there and we analyzed the data, I could not find much scope in increasing the fishing effort. That was the actual result which we got. But later data have been added now by the MEWA, the ministry, and this analysis has been done by the data from the data that has been provided by the ministry. But again, I would like to say there is we have to take this data also very cautiously. That's why I did not say there is great scope for increasing. I said that there's only, it appears that there is a marginal scope. But what I would like to come back to, one of my points which I flagged here is that we need to have a good data here. So data is very important. The scientific data and scientific analysis is very much important here. So what you said is from your own field experience, that many landing centers are closed. The per capita fish production from capture fisheries is very low among the fishermen. That is true. So, but this is not very well reflected in the data provided by the ministry. So unless we have got very good data, not only on fish catch, but also at species level and also spatial level, and also the economics of fishing operation, from which area this fish is coming. So unless we do have all this type of information, what is the catch from each gear? So unless we have this very good data resolution, I think it will be very difficult to come to any conclusion. So that's why I said that we need to have a good data acquisition system and collect as, and also I would like to mention here that we need to have the maximum economic yield analysis, the MEY analysis. So we need to have all these things together if you want to come to any conclusion of either increasing or decreasing the fishing effort, etc. So until that time, it has to go on a precautionary type of management measure. And I think that's what I would recommend for the Gulf, for the Gulf as well as for the Red Sea. Regarding your second question, yes, there is a huge bycatch that has been, I think, discarded. Though it is prohibited, I think it is discarded in the sea. So when you talk about product from the bycatch, so we need to have what type of bycatch is that? Is there any economic market for that? Suppose it is brought to the shore, can it be used for value addition? Many juveniles cannot be used for value addition. So is there a possibility of value addition for this? And if it is done, what is the market opportunities for that? I think these are some of the things which have to be worked out in detail if we want to avoid the bycatch. But another problem here is that more and more bycatch means if it goes to aquaculture feed, then again there is a problem in some countries. For example, in country like in India, what we find is that there is a target fishery for bycatch. People go for bycatch, catch juveniles and sell it to aquaculture farm. So that is also becoming a major issue. So all these things have to be thought out before we start a plan for bycatch processing or making product from the bycatch.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Vivekananda. There is another question from Mr. Ali Hal Dahi.
Yeah.
Mr. Ali Al.
Dr. Shiva, I think you need to unmute him. He cannot unmute himself. You need to unmute him.
Yeah, I'm trying to unmute him, but I couldn't. Okay. Mr. Humayun, can you please resolve this? Mr. Humayun, are you able to unmute?
Mr. Al-Dahim, he can write the question there in the Q&A box. I think he has some problem with the mic.
Yeah.
I think he has.
Yeah, there is in chat, if you can put, I can see that.
Yes.
In the chat box.
Mr. Dhani, if you have any question or if you face any problem with your mic, could you please post your questions in the chat box? Time we'll look for. Is there any other question from participants or panelists?
I think no more questions, Dr. Shankar.
Okay. Okay then. Thank you everyone for your attention, and thank you, Dr. Vivekananda, for answering the questions.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If participants, if you have any further questions, you can contact the presenter through email. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Vivekananda.
Thank you.
And unfortunately, the third presenter, Dr. Yusuf Al-Hafid, he is unable to join with us in the technical forum due to some technical issues. However, we will check the possibilities to accommodate him in tomorrow's presentation. So with this, we come to an end of today's presentation. Thank you all for joining the presentation, and we will meet again tomorrow with other exciting presentations. So as I mentioned, if you have any questions that were not answered in the technical forum, please contact the respective presenter through email. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.